Hi everyone, Nigel Saunders here. Today I'm going to be working on my Premna. The first video of this tree I did drastic root pruning. The roots are all twisted and gnarly and I basically cut them all off, reducing the tree to almost a cutting. It had a few fine kind of radial roots. I took a large branch off that was low down on the tree. It was sticking out at 90 degrees. The tree did survive, as you can see. Today I'm going to continue the work transforming this tree from a very rough pre-bonsai into something hopefully nice looking. I did plant the branch I cut off as a cutting, and the cutting survived all of last year, but this year it didn't come out into leaf. So I'm going to pull it out, see if it grew any roots. Oh, it did. You can see all the roots that formed on the cutting. Amazing. Now this cutting may still be alive. It is still flexible. It just doesn't have any leaves. So maybe I should plant it again. So, you know, the tips are brittle, but yeah, maybe I should plant it again. Try and grow it as a cutting still. Here's a look at the scar where I removed the large branch. So there is some callousing around the cut point, and a new branch grew in that place, which is nice. It angles upwards. But yeah, I think it'll take many years for that to heal. The wood on these Premnas is very tough, so I don't think it'll rot away or anything. It'll just kind of dry up and slowly heal over the years as the tree grows larger. In the first video on this tree, I talked about possibly removing this large branch here. This branch is, well, it's about the same diameter as the trunk up here. So it could be, you know, this is the main trunk and there's another trunk coming off the side. It does go upright. However, it's very awkward looking. I think, you know, I need more trunk. This tree will grow larger. More trunk and then start my branches up higher. I think it's just too thick a branch and it's too flat. If it was more upright, I think it would look more of like a broom, part of a broom canopy, but I think it's kind of in between horizontal and the vertical angle, and it just looks very, yeah, it looks out of place, that's for sure, and it doesn't look miniature. I mean, you can see trees in nature with trunks like that, but branches and trunks like that, but I think I better remove it. I think if I kept it as a feature of the tree, it's a rather bizarre feature and an atypical feature, something that you wouldn't see on a mature tree not very often. So I'm going to remove it. There's also a lot of thickening. You can see the fillet here where it comes up the trunk and comes into this branch. So it'll leave a large scar, probably even larger than this one, but I think in the end, the tree will be a better tree for it. I planted this tree quite deep in the soil to make sure it formed a good root base after the last root pruning, so I'll gain a little bit of trunk from that. And I do have some nice branches in this area that are on the angle upwards that, you know, can replace this thick branch. So that's step number one today, removing that large branch. There's another branch, a dead one up here that's in the way. I wonder if I should prune that away first. So I'll come in here from above and try and get rid of that branch. Like that, that helps. Now I may be able to reduce that even further. Yeah. It just breaks off that dead wood. So now I should be able to get in here. Now I mentioned in the first video also that Premnas, the dead wood, does last a long time on these trees. It's a tough wood, and I talked about, you know, it's possible I can make some dead wood there, but I don't think I will. I'm not a real big fan of deadwood and tropical trees. You can see the tree, it's stable in the pot, but it still wiggles a bit, so the roots definitely haven't filled the pot yet. All right, so here I go. I'm going to take off the large branch now. I'll get it as flush as I can and then nibble away the rest. So I can get the ironwood pruners in here now. Here I go. Big, big cut coming up. Oh, it's so hard, this wood. Now the pruners are working fine. There we go. The wood was just so hard. Okay, so there is that branch now removed. That was a big, big cut. Tough wood. So I'll also put this in my bucket of water. Maybe grow it as a cutting. So here's the stump I'm left with. I've got, you can see there's a branch each side in that area. I definitely will keep one of them. Which one? But both. Here's the radial direction out here, and this one's cranked over this side, and this one's cranked over this side. So we will see. Okay, it's time to clean this cut up. I'm trying to get it even more flush. This may be very tough to do, but I'll try the little ball nose cutters and see if, yeah, that's working okay. I'll just nibble away at it slowly. I'm thinking I may have to take these branches off totally. It's nice because I have something growing out this side, but I think by the time I carve this big bulge here flush, you know, they just won't be part of it. If I leave sort of a living vein going through that branch, I don't think it'll survive. I think I'm just have to remove too much material here. I think the tree will be fine without it. So I'm going to, you know, come in and try and make this flush, this whole side of the tree. It'll be a big, big scar, but I think the form of the tree will be correct, and the scar will just take time to heal. So this tree was a very rough pre-bonsai. It had bad roots, a bad branch structure. It didn't have much going for it. So it's requiring some pretty drastic work here to get it to look like a miniature tree. However, I think it'll get there. And I can raise the question, you know, what's better, to start off with a tree like this and try and fix everything, or take a cutting off the tree or an air layer and then develop that? And I think, as far as, I guess it depends what type of person you are. Whether you like the challenge of trying to make this tree into a miniature tree, like a pre-bonsai, or do you prefer to grow them from scratch? And I'm not sure. I think this tree has some hidden potential. You know, with the right bonsai work on it, a bit of luck, I think it'll get through and it'll become a really cool bonsai. Something that's, you know, maybe impressive someday. But, you know, it's taking a lot of work. It's not, and not just a lot of work, but a lot of risk is maybe the factor. You know, I took a big risk with the roots. It was a big, big gamble. I mean, the tree could have just keeled over and died. But, you know, good condition, good post care, got the tree through. So yeah, this kind of reduction work, this drastic work, it's risky. And, you know, if I just started from a cutting, I could have grown the tree slowly, getting the branch structure I want, and probably in the end get a superior tree. This tree may never be a really good bonsai. It may always have these big scars on it. But, you know, Mother Nature will heal all wounds. It'll become a feature maybe someday, I don't know. It's a pretty big scar. It's like, yeah. Now, I'm just wondering, like it still bulges out here. I would have to take this way, way back to get rid of that bulging. I think it's a case of just, you know, growing the tree thicker so it eventually smooths in. So I'll just try and make my cut fairly flush and smooth. And I could have made, you know, a deadwood branch coming off of here, but it still wouldn't flow. It would still be, you know, instead of an ugly living branch, it'd be an ugly dead branch. So that's why I removed it totally. Oh, it's quite bulgy on this side here still. I'll take it back a little further. I think that's as far as I'm going to take it back. Quite a wound. It's half the tree almost. Okay, I will seal that with the rubber cement. I'm just applying the rubber cement to the wound now, sealing it up. The rubber cement seems to help preserve the deadwood too. It keeps critters out and it keeps water out so it doesn't rot away quite so quickly. So that's that wound all sealed up. I'll put some rubber cement on the other cut from last year too, just to help preserve the dead wood. So that is some major work on this tree for this year. Wow, that was a big, big cut. I think the tree will look better someday for it though. Now, I'm going to do a little pruning today. I have a deadwood branch here that I want to take out. I've removed that dead branch that was growing out of here. It just kind of, well, it kind of shattered. Here's a piece of it. Yeah, so that's, I think, got rid of all my deadwood on the tree now. Yeah, so let's step back now and have a look at the style of this tree. Here is an overall look at the tree. So I have a trunk that, if you look from here, it divides into two. I have some branches growing around that division point. I don't think I want those, but do I prune them away now? The problem with that division point is that if you look at it from this view, the one branch comes off at an angle, kind of a funny angle, and the other one also on the same angle, but it's a little more vertical. So what do I do as far as the styling of this tree? If you look from this view, it's funny because the branch in the back kind of crosses this trunk line and grows off on an angle. It's possible I could cut that branch off, creating just a single trunk tree, and then grow my branch structure up top, kind of slowly and carefully. Wow, that would be a big, big cut. The question is, am I ever going to be happy with this trunk line that curves off? You know, there is a new branch here that's making a nice transition, but it is a funny looking branch the way it curves off like that. There is a saying in bonsai, if in doubt, cut it out. And I have doubts about this branch, the way it it's kind of curved and cranks over. It's very thick. I mean, it could definitely be styled into an acceptable tree, but it just looks really bad from every view except maybe, you know, one view. I think it really limits the tree to what can be the front. And so I definitely have my doubts about that branch, so I'm going to cut it out. All right, here comes the second big cut for today. So I'm coming in here and pruning that branch off. Here I go. Big cut coming up. Click, 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 done. Wow. So again, I'll try and root this as a cutting. Wow, it's becoming a stick in a pot, but you know, that's half the battle with building a nice trunk line on these trees. Okay, so I've got to clean this up, trying to make it as flush as possible. Again, this branch, you can see it's cranked off in a funny direction. I'm going to remove it. And then I'll clean this up. Like that. That looks good from that view anyway. Actually, the whole tree looks pretty good from this view. Okay, let's get out the rubber cement and seal that cut now. All right, I'm running low on my rubber cement, but I think I'm just enough to do the cut. That's good and sealed. So big cut number 2 is finished for today. Let's step back and look at the future styling possibilities of this tree once again. All right, let's have a look. The tree naturally, if you look at it this view, it naturally arches forward, which makes this, you know, a fairly nice front view kind of here. It has the big scar here, but it doesn't look too bad. Yeah. I think, you know, this is probably the strongest front view. I'll mark it as the front view. Now I'll just stick a loop of wire in the front here, and that indicates my front view of the tree. Now, I've got a lower branch here that one developed, and if this is the front view, it's not in a very good location. The only way I could keep this branch is if I had the front view more here, so it's coming off on an angle. And I think it's too low on the tree anyway, so I'm going to prune it away. I don't need it. Like that. So there's my front view there. I've got a dead branch here, I'll prune away. I've got a dead tip here I can prune away. This tip I can prune back shorter. I've got a dead branch here that I'll prune away. And this dieback is because I did all that root work, and it you know, you always get a bit of dieback when you do root work, especially extreme root work like I did. But you can see the tree is recovering. There's all kinds of new shoots on it now. So I think, yeah, hopefully it's in a good place now. So I'm just continuing to prune away all the dead wood. Yeah, so everything on the tree is now living wood. So the next work I want to do is up top here. I've got a stump here. Here is the apex of the tree, and you can see it's been cut off. And all my branches are kind of growing horizontally around that point. So I'll have to prune this stub back flush and then develop something coming up the middle here, a new leader, maybe this one in here or one over this side. So that's my next step, is to prune away that stump. So I will come in with my branch pruners here and try and come in right here like this and prune it off. Here I go. Whoa, big cut there. And I'll just clean this up a bit. That was a pretty good cut, actually. Occasionally I get lucky. Okay, so I've got that pruned flush now. I will also seal that with my rubber cement. So I'll keep my eyes open for a potential leader to come up, making a transition from the thick trunk to a new leader to the tree. Here is a look at my Premna now. So it's kind of got a single trunk, and at the moment it's got a flat top canopy. I think it looks quite nice. I think it's on its way to becoming a bonsai. I'll rotate it around so you can see all the horrible cut marks on it. Yeah. And there's going to be lots more work on this tree. There's my front somewhere here. There'll be lots more work on this tree to come. But yeah, I think it's... I'm happy with the work I did today. I think it was just necessary to get the style of tree I envision, which will be a typical tropical tree with an umbrella canopy. And yeah, hopefully a nice trunk with lots of cool features. And I think these pruning marks will become features in the future as the trunk thickens up and calluses over. I think it'll look quite nice. The next steps for this Premna will be allowing it to grow. And when I say grow, it'll be in a controlled manner. I'm in no hurry to develop this tree. I'm just going to grow it out slowly and carefully, selecting my branches and gradually improving the tree. Let's go on to the next tree for today. It has begun to rain out today, so the next trees I'm going to be working on is my Osage Orange tree forest. It's right here. This is the 4th growing season for this forest, and they were all started from seeds. So let's get it in the greenhouse and begin working on the forest. Here is a look at the forest. The last time I worked on this forest was in January of this year. In the winter time, there were no leaves on the tree, and I pruned it to an asymmetrical triangular profile. And from the side view, I kept it tall in the front of the planting and tapered the trees down at the back to create forest perspective. I think the pruning of the forest in that style is working really well. You can see the forest has depth to it. The trees in the back look far away. The trees in the front look closer to the viewer. So today I'm going to prune the forest up. There's a lot of shoots that have grown, really quite long on it. And it needs pruning back, kind of restoring the overall profile and intent of the forest. I'm going to start the pruning in the front view, reestablishing my asymmetrical triangular shape. It's not too bad. It's, out of shape a little bit, but you can still see that basic form to it. So I'll just prune everything back using directional pruning, looking at each tree. There is a lot of trees in this forest, so each tree, when viewed from above, can't occupy much space for the canopy. The canopies have to be very tight to the trunk of the tree. They can't be wide-spreading canopies, otherwise they grow across the other trees and it just becomes a tangled mess. So I've got to prune back all these trees, fairly compact, keeping the growth, fairly upright on them. I can't let those branches get too wide and spreading. I'll prune the trees on the edge of the forest quite short, keeping them, just a little taller than I did in winter.
I've got the canopy roughly pruned to an asymmetrical triangular shape. So now I'll rotate it around to the side view and I'll prune it so it's tall at the front and it tapers back towards the back of the planting. Keeping the trees at the back of the forest looking small and miniature, and the trees at the front looking larger, so you get that sense of perspective and depth to the forest. On branches that are leaning, because I want to keep the trees compact, I usually prune to an upright leaf, so the growth continues to go more vertical rather than wide and spreading. So here's an example. This branch is spreading out, reaching for the sun. So there's a vertical leaf here. I can prune just before that, so the growth continues more vertical. Here's one here that's quite, it's quite going sideways. So I have either this leaf or this leaf. I'll prune it to here. And the other side of this one, I'll prune it back to here. So each tree has its own space of sunlight. There's some weeds down here I can pull out. Got the roots. I think I have my rough pruning done now. So next I need to kind of look at each tree and prune it up. So you can kind of wiggle each trunk, see what's attached to it, and then prune it up to make, the best looking tree you can out of each tree. So this year I didn't get any trees die off, which was really good. It shows my pruning was good, that each tree got light. Previous years I've always had a few seedlings die off because they just didn't get enough light on the interior of the forest. So it's important to really keep the trees open to get light into those lower branches and the back trees, and so everything has good light. Now up here, this main tree, the largest tree, is getting it's quite dense up top. I need to do some thinning. So if I wiggle the main tree here, you can kind of see there's a lot of branches in here that are getting quite dense. So I'm just going to come and look. So here I've got 1, 2, 3 branches at least growing from the same spot. So I need to thin that out. Actually, there's more than that. There's 1, 2, 3, at least 4 branches. So I think there's one growing on the inside of a curve here. I'll take out this trunk line. So here I go. Like that. That gives more space in between these trees. There's one here that needs pruning. I've got kind of a branch or thick trunk line coming up here, and then from the bottom of that I have another branch coming off towards the front, and then I have another one coming off to the side and another one below it. Oh my goodness, there's a lot of branches in this area. So I think I'm going to have to come in and do some thinning, deciding what I want to keep and what I want to take off. So overall, I'd say the overall size is getting a little tall, so I'm going to prune it back a bit. I think to here. I'll try here for now. I may have to reduce it even further. I've got to decide, do I want this? I think I like this trunk line coming up on the angle. It gives, a bit of a crown to the tree. There's a white fly. Got it. But I don't think I need this one coming out the front. So I'll take this one off. like that. That looks better. It opens this up. And then I've got one here. I can keep my lower one and get rid of this one. That looks much better. It opens it up. And then, is this one alive? I don't think so. I'm going to take this one off. I think it was a dead stump. Okay. That's better. It's definitely more open. I could take, this one divides into two here, and this part of it continues straight, so I'm going to take off the straight bit and use that back branch. It reduces that straight section a bit. There's a dead branch on the inside here I can take off. Like that. There's a branch here I can reduce back. So I'm looking at the overall forest now, just looking for areas that are cluttered, branches that are too long and straight. So maybe back here this tree needs some fixing. It's got two parallel branches here that don't look so good together. I think I'm going to keep my lower one and prune away the upper one. Like that. And then I'll prune this one shorter. That's a lot of light in here now. Now I'm going to step back and look at all my views. So we'll look at this side view first. Here's a look at the side view. So you can see, again, I have my tallest tree is maybe a third of the way into the forest, and then it tapers down at the front, which is good. It has that asymmetrical triangle when viewed from the side view. I'm just checking for trees sticking out of the profile. Maybe there's one here. That's a little too tall. Prune that back. Okay, I think the side view's looking good. Let's rotate to the front view now. Here is a look at the forest from the front view. It's not bad. A little high here. I could trim that back. And I mean, some variation is fine. You don't have to, be too precise. I can prune this one back a bit and this one. Trim the tip off this branch. Like that. Still a little high here. I'll take back a bit more. Like that. I think that looks good. Next, I'm going to clean up the landscape of all the weeds. I've already pulled all the major weeds out, so now I'm trying to get this Irish moss out, or Scotch moss. And I try and get it out by the roots, because the roots are really deep and they form a mat of roots below the surface of the soil, and it makes it hard to water the trees. The mass of roots stops water penetrating down deep into the soil. So you just got to dig around and find the root base on this Scotch moss and pull it out by the roots. Let's see if I can get this one out now. Yeah, I got that out by the roots. Now here's a big spreading clump here that I need to get out by the roots also. Got that one. I have finished my weeding. I pulled a lot of weeds out, and the pruning is finished. I had another final look at the tree. I did a little more touch up on them. So let's have a look at the forest now. Here is a look at the forest now, all pruned up and cleaned up. So this forest is 4 years old from a seed. Osage oranges. And I think it's coming along nicely. It's still a young forest. It'll take many, many years before the trees start getting mature bark, before they start looking like ancient trees. But, for a young forest, I think it looks young and vibrant and youthful. I think it's got a nice look to it. These trees get a nice yellow fall color. So I think there's enough time left in the year for them to fill out again. They're a little sparse looking right now. They'll fill out, and then I'll get the nice autumn colors. And it should look quite spectacular. I do need to get a nice pot for this forest someday. It's in a mica pot right now, which is a great training pot. But if I ever want to put it in a show, it will need a fancier pot. And I think it would be a good tree or forest for fall shows with the yellow foliage up top. And the opposite of yellow is purple. I don't think I want a purple pot, but maybe just like a dark pot like the mica one to show off the yellow colors. Maybe, yellow and then a dark chocolate gray pot or something like that. Yeah, so that's the forest, a 4-year-old forest from seeds. It's time now for today's update. Let's head outside for today's update, and it is my willow trees. I recently pruned my black willow back, and you can see it's already growing leaves, which is amazing. They're coming out on all the shoots, so that's good. The other ones, my weeping willows, let's have a look at those. They are over here. So I can see on the branches there's all kinds of buds forming, which is also very good. The one I stuck in as a cutting back there, the leaves are kind of shriveled up. So I'm not sure how successful that'll be, but we'll see later on in the year. My last update for today is my Ficus religiosa, my small one, or people tree. This tree is over 25 years old now, and I've kept it very small in a small pot. Let's go in and have a look at it. Here is a look at the tree. So I have it growing in another pot, and I did this for the winter time to keep the vigor of the tree up. So the roots escape from the top pot into the bottom pot through the drainage holes, and it keeps the tree really vigorous. So today I'm going to remove the top pot from the bottom pot and prune the roots from the drainage holes. I'm going to start though by pruning this tall leader back, pruning it back to just a stub. Here is a look at the tree up close. So I've got taper from the base all the way up to here. And in this section here, the taper stops. So I need to prune it somewhere about here. I'm looking for leaf scars. I have one on the outside here. I think there's one on the inside there. There's one out the back. So I think right here is a good place to prune it. So here I go. Big cut coming up. Just like that. Down below, I have 2 branches coming from one spot. I only need one. I kept one as a backup in case one died off. I'm going to keep the one that's coming out front. The other one is kind of in line with the trunk and would create sort of a flat tree. So I'm going to prune this one off. So here I go. Like that. Next, I'm going to remove the top pot from the bottom pot. So here I go. There's definitely roots growing down on the bottom pot. Wow, it's actually filled with roots. Wow. That's a lot of roots that have grown out the drainage holes into the bottom. So I'll come in with my scissors, not my really good scissors, but my bee scissors, and I'll just prune off these roots. To separate the top pot from the bottom. Like that. I'll clean this off. So here's the pot. I got my spray bottle. I'll just wash all that sand away so I can see what's going on. There's a look at the bottom of the pot. You can see the roots that have grown out the drainage holes. Okay, let's take it back inside and finish the work. I've got the tree inside. If I tilt it up, you can see the roots, and these roots will eventually block the drainage holes. They'll thicken up, filling that space where the drainage hole is and prevent good drainage in the pot. So I will prune them flush, and then I will lift the tree out of the pot. Try and prune them flush. These scissors aren't very sharp. Let me try my nibblers. So I'll come in here and try and nibble away the roots. If I don't do this, it's hard to get the tree out of the pot. The roots hold it in on the bottom here. And it's possible, you know, if these roots grow too thick, they'll actually break the pot. They'll crack it. Trees have a tremendous amount of strength. Okay, so that's pruned away from the bottom. So next I'll try and pull the tree out of the pot. All right, here I go. I'll try lifting it out. If it doesn't work, I'll have to massage the sides. Oh, it's in there pretty firm. I am going to have to come in with my spatula and loosen up the sides. It's just too tight in here. Okay, let's see if that comes out now. It is coming. There it is, it's out of the pot. Okay, this pot has a little bit of a lip on the inside. That's why it was being stubborn. Okay, I'm going to rake out the roots now. I'll have to remove this moss from the top. Beautiful moss, but it's getting quite thick. I'll keep it in case I can reuse it, but generally when it gets that thick, it's not useful anymore. It's just too thick for a bonsai. It's better to regrow a thinner layer. Okay, so you can see it exposes the wide base of this tree now. So I'll get out the root rake. It looks like I'm doing a full repotting today. So the roots are wrapped around the pot. So I'll just gently comb out the roots. There's a thick root. I could feel when I was digging in with the spatula, I could hit that root there. That's got to come off. That's too thick. So I'll prune it away right now. Right to here. Like that. And I may have to prune it back further. We'll see once I get this out. There. And here's my drainage screen. One-piece drainage screen. And I will continue to comb out the roots here. The roots are looking healthy. I don't think there was any problem health-wise with the roots. Now I'm seeing another thick one here that will need to be pruned. So on small trees like this, you don't want, thick roots winding around the pot. So I'll prune that one off also. Like that. Pull it out. There. And I will continue raking out the roots. So this tree is not a cutting. I bought way back a little pot full of Ficus religiosa trees. And I think the pot had about 5 trees in it. And this is one of them. This was the smallest tree. So I've always kept it as a small tree for many, many years. Used to be in a pot that Gary sent me, and then I put it in this fancier pot, giving it a little more room to grow. The other pot was just getting a little small for the tree. You just can't stop these trunks from getting thick. They thicken up over the years. Okay, so there's a few roots here. There's one, it comes off the tree on a weird angle, so I'm pruning that away. Like that. There's another one coming from here that's growing on a strange angle. Get rid of that. Now I've got to comb up the bottom here. Okay, I'll wash the root base now so I can have a good look at the roots. I've got the root system washed, so I'm going to do a bit more combing now. Combing out my roots radially. So here's a root. It comes from underneath and it starts growing up and curls around, so I'll prune the top of that one off. Like that. There's another one here that's growing up. Prune the top of that off. Now, let's go below. You can see there's a thick root growing straight down here. I'll prune that back short. Like that, taking it out. There's one growing across here I'll take out. I like my root base to be flat on the bottom. Take that one out. Another one here, prune back. There's a few there. So I'm just kind of flattening the bottom of the roots now, if you can see that. Let me just zoom out a bit. Yeah, so just flattening all the roots on the bottom. Not cutting them off, just shortening them. Because they are feeder roots, they'll feed the tree. And they help repair, wounds on the bottom of the root base. They contribute to the health of the tree. So there, I've got the root base pruned flat on the bottom. Now I still have to do some work up top on the roots. So I'll do a little more combing, making sure they're all nice and radial. Now you can see there was a thick root here that I cut off on an angle, and I got a lot of fine feeder roots coming from it. I think it's still in okay shape. Maybe I'll just prune those feeder roots back a bit. They're a little going straight down. That'll help them spread out a bit. Now you can see there was quite a thick root on this side. I pruned it back. That's where all those roots were growing. I'm going to trim them back a little more here, just fixing it up. I need my nibblers in here. Like that. The other ones are okay. Yeah, I think that's got the root base pruned up. I think it's looking quite good. All right, it's time now to plant the tree. Here's a look at what I took off today. I took, a fair amount of fine roots that were going down, some really thick roots that were just taken over. I pruned the top of the tree off. a side branch. Yeah, so it's time to get it back in the pot now. This pot is a really nice Japanese pot. You can see the chop on the bottom. You can also see I paid $6 for it, which is, I don't know, it could be a Chinese pot, I'm not sure, but there's the writing either that way or this way. Yeah, it's a nice little drum pot. It's perfect size for this tree. So I'll put the drainage screen back in the pot. I've cleaned the drainage screen off. That can go in there, and I'll get a base layer of soil in. I'm going to test fit the tree in the pot just to see how it fits. Oh, it's pretty good. There's a few roots sticking out. I'll just give it a quick profile prune. Like that. And then I think as far as position in the pot, I don't have much choice. I can move it, you know, just a little bit, but I think basically it's going to be there. Okay, so I'll add my base layer of soil now. Kind of piling it up in the middle. Then I'll get my tree and position it, getting it the right height in the pot, which I'll do from the front. Okay, I'm looking at the tree in the pot here. Now on the pot it has 3 feet on the bottom, so I can either have the 1 foot out the front, which I don't like because it makes the pot look unstable and it shows the foot off like flat on. It's not as interesting. You don't see the shape of the foot. So I prefer to have the foot each side like this. So this would be the front of the pot here. So I need to line up the front of my tree with the front of the pot. I think somewhat there. And then I'm just checking the angle of the tree. I think that's not bad. It's going quite vertical from the side view. It's coming just slightly forward. I think that looks quite nice. All right, I'll fill in the rest of the soil around the roots now. Before I add the soil, I'm just going to, check my roots are radial. There's one I can prune off here. Make sure they're all nice and radial. They're not like crossing and disorganized. Okay, that looks good. Now I'll add some soil in around the roots. And I may have to remove those large chunks of reptile bark there. They may be a little coarse for this tree. Now I'll get out my stainless steel chopstick and just work that soil into the roots. You can see the soil level going down as I work it into the roots. I'll start the watering with the mister, so I'll just lightly mist it so I don't wash the soil away. And now I can come in with the watering can and give it a good deep water. All right, here I go with the watering can. It's a gentle rain. And that should do it. I'm going to head out front and see if I can find some fine moss to put on the surface of the soil, kind of the finishing touches. I'm out here on the front sidewalk looking for fine moss. So maybe here? That looks pretty good. I think I'll collect that. All right. I don't need much for this planting because it's a small tree. I'll add some rainwater to the moss just to soak it so it's not quite so hard, all the soil. And I'll leave that soak for a bit till the moss becomes nice and soft, and I can peel back some of that soil from the back of it so it's a thinner layer. Now let's check in on our moss. Oh, it's definitely softened up. So you can see on the back there's a layer of fine silt, and this is like dust that blows in the cracks of the sidewalk. Fine sand and silt. It's a good medium for moss to grow on. So I can't really peel back much more. The roots are, it's kind of, I don't know, moss doesn't have roots, but that's about it. There is a grass weed growing in there that I'll pick out. Okay, I'll put this on the tree now. So I'll just place it around the surface of the soil here, pushing it down. Like that. Making sure it has good contact with the soil, and any weeds you see, just pick them out. There's one there. You want to sort of integrate that layer of soil on the moss in with your bonsai soil, so it's really good contact. That way your soil or your moss doesn't dry out. It keeps hydrated with the soil. Okay, and you can see I've got a little gap here, so I need to break off a little tiny piece of moss and put it in that crack. That gap, filling it in. Like that. So now I need to trim back my moss from the lip of the pot. I'll come in with the scissors and just prune it back. Here is a look at the tree all pruned up, repotted. The next step is just to let the tree grow, fill in with leaves. Yeah, I think it looks quite nice. I think, you know, this repotting is always a little risky. But it's also risky just leaving your trees in the pot and not pruning the roots. You get this horrible root base. You know, you get these thick roots developing on ficus, and it just becomes unbalanced, and that affects the top of your tree and the roundness of your tree. So, you know, repotting and root maintenance is something that's ongoing with ficus, and it's a very important step to do. It was nice to get my Premna pruned up today. My Osage Orange forest looking good, and now my Ficus religiosa. That's all for today. I'm Nigel Saunders. Thanks for joining me in the Bonsai Zone.